Hello and welcome to Marketplace Ecclesia. My name is George Mkamba and this is Africa Reformation. In this episode today, I want us to talk about Africa, what Africa ought to do as we go into 2025 and into the future. Firstly, Africa is at a point in history whereby the nations or the continent can decide the future it wants without fear of control, without fear of manipulation. Why do I say that? Because currently the world is going through a global reset. A global reset, it certainly means that civilization is deciding a new order. We are okay. So what do I mean by that? 2024 was a remarkable year. It was an eventful year, but I would want to think that a transition had already started from 2020, and we are still in that. We are still going through that transition. So there is a pronounced global reset taking place, whereby the liberal world order is giving away to a multipolar order. A multipolar order is a system whereby there is really no one distinct, or there are no distinct superpowers that are determining the state of affairs around the globe. Okay, so right now, most nations are looking at how they can rebuild their nations. So they are coming up with different mantras. If you talk of America, they are saying MAGA, make America great again. Argentina, make Argentina great again. And the same thing goes with other nations. I may not have the mantras right now, but you understand what I'm saying. And what has necessitated nations to now focus on rebuilding or building their own nations or building their own civilizations is because we are coming from a past whereby there's been a multiple world orders that have been tried and they've not worked. And citizens are not happy. Citizens are in discontent, and it is now impossible. It is now crucial that nations sit down and get to address the nations of the concerns of their citizens, and build or craft policies or implement policies that are people first, or that are citizen driven, and or that are social and human development driven. Because if they are not focused on people and they are focused on other things, it means that we just walk out from one crisis and go on to another. So what does it mean for Africa? Africa is also then should be the starting point for Africa. I think it is really deciding the African or the leadership philosophy that should drive the nations of Africa. We have no specific, or we have no solid political and governance philosophy that is driving our nations. We've been borrowing ideologies, we've been borrowing ideas from there and trying to implement this, trying to implement that. But disjointed strategies of building a nation will never work, because a nation is an integral part that is 12 specific components that should be driven by systems. So if we are trying to use disjointed strategies to build nations, it will not work out. It will just give birth to hybrid systems that each time we'll be trying to figure out what to call them. And so the first point for African nations is to decide the leadership philosophy that is going to guide its politics, that is going to guide its governance, that is going to guide its social and economic development, its industrialization, its agriculture strategies, its energy strategy. So if we come up with something, if we have our own philosophy, then we then get to meet as African nations and then get to compare our leadership philosophy so that we can at least come up with a consolidated, I'm not saying collective, but a consolidated philosophy. What do I mean? It at least has to be driving towards one common vision, a common vision of Africa, of reforming our nations, of rebuilding our nations. And then when we have done that, then we can begin to open up the other conversations, like how best can we be integrated? Is there a need to be integrated first? Because right now, to talk of Pan-Africanism, one nation, one integral nation, and all that, it is still premature to do that. First and foremost, we have to be identified under a common philosophy, and then be identified under a common practice. Are we building our nations, or we are destroying our nations? So it has to be there. Then we'll even get to see the multipolar alliances or blocs forming within Africa based on what I've just said. Nations that want to build and nations that are not for building. But we're going to try by all means to ensure that right now we rise up with an inspired vision to build our continent, because we are a new generation, founding fathers 2.0. We have learned from the mistakes of the past, and right now we are saying this is the only chance that we have. We have a 5-year period to realign our nations so that we can be focused or oriented towards rebuilding, towards reconstruction of our nations, towards citizen first philosophies in our nations. Okay, so, and then when those multipolar alliances, I want to think that some of them will be formalized, some of them will not be formalized. But it's important that, no, at least right now all of us, just come together with a vision to build, a vision to build. We have our own issues, we have our own problems, but that's what we will be looking at. It's one thing to admit a problem. It's another to use propaganda and to try to window dress issues whilst we are being left behind. So this is the agency that we have as African nations, that we are at a time that we need to build our own philosophy, one. And then two, we need systems. We need to really talk system building. We need to begin to establish institutes of system building, or a system building institutes. That's what we need in Africa. How do we build an agricultural system, an agricultural science system? How do we build an industrial system that ensures sustained growth? How do we build a financing system that integrates both domestic finance and FDI, or foreign finance? So all those things, they really need to be. We need to be intentional about these issues, because if we are not system driven, then we can just be as well forget, because this is where we are coming from. We are coming from a past whereby where we are is because we have been applying disjointed techniques to try to do politics, and also we are running our institutions without systems. Actually, we just because we have not been taught the benefits of systems, the importance of systems, the importance of value chains, the importance of creating an economy that is working, we keep thinking that it's about accumulation, it's about acquisitions, that we can really we can build nations. That will never work, because acquisitions that are not creating an economy, they are just as good as it's not being there. They are not serving any purpose. They are not resources. So this is the future that we need to get into, a future whereby we are we are thinking, we are being intentional about system building. System building in nations is the critical key that differentiates the Western nations and African nations. We don't have systems, and we can never, ever build nations when you don't have systems. We do not even have revenue management systems. So then how do you expect to manage or to be able to monitor what you are collecting and to ensure that it's being redirected to the right channels, or being directed towards towards the building of your nation? So you see, today I've just talked about, I thought it's important to mention those two critical issues: leadership philosophy and then system building. And then once we do that and we begin to be heading towards a common direction of growth, we identify ourselves with success. When you're identifying ourselves with success, then it's easy to begin to talk of brotherhood, begin to talk of unity, because you know that there's no one who's got a hidden intention to try to steal something from you or to try to milk me. You get what I'm saying? Nations think like people. The way we think as people is the way nations also behave. So we need to get to that point whereby, it has to be about the growth of our nations first. And then after our nations are heading towards towards a growth trajectory, then we can begin to have these other discussions, the good discussions about Pan-Africanism, good concepts, but they cannot work when they are not riding on a solid philosophy, when they are not riding on systems. So this is where we are heading. The future for Africa is bright as long as we keep on with the founding fathers 2.0 spirit, as of saying, no, we are here as builders and not as destroyers. We are here as builders and not as dividers. We are redemptive agents of our nations. We are the sons and daughters who have been created for such a time as this, to bring reformation in our nations. So we'll carry on these discussions into the future, and it has been nice carrying on this conversation. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters of Africa. I have a deep respect for African brothers and sisters, because I know you're smart, I know you're hardworking, I know you're aggressive, I know you're open-minded. Till we meet again.